Pleasure to welcome onto the stage our third speaker, and he will join us later for the panel, Kevin James.
Our love is strong enough.
It's going to be hard. Is this it, yeah? Oh, so sorry, so sorry. Good morning, everybody. Fantastic to see a full auditorium. Now, I've been given the task of getting down to the nitty-gritty. How is it all done? What processes, what measurement is required to reveal the truth about whether we are performing as a sustainable business, a better business or not? We, as a company, we assist some of the biggest companies in South Africa understand how to develop strategies, implement and embed those strategies, more importantly. What underpins that is a foundation of accurate, reliable measurement. We call ourselves purveyors of sustainability in the trenches because for the last 10 years, the last decade, we've been having to deal with perspectives, leadership, who haven't always been that forthcoming and that welcoming of the conversation. It's been a massive change management undertaken, and I cannot stress what a challenge it has actually been. Ironically, sustainability, or really our relationship and connection with our home, has been the most difficult thing to get and embed in the minds of business leadership and, in fact, political leadership. So today I'm going to get quite practical. I'm not going to be talking very, very high level. I'm going to get right down to the nitty-gritty. How do we actually do all this? So, for those of you who've heard me speak before, I cannot cut the umbilical cord of this slide because it is something that really just indicates where we've come as a species since the beginning of the Industrial Revolution. We've had a series of innovation waves. Some have been characterized by what had been the most sophisticated innovation of the time. And you can see the internal combustion engine was very sophisticated 100 years ago, and going back to John's comment, it's time for it to leave. We've got no need for it anymore. But you can see the last innovation wave, the digital IT innovation wave, was significant. It was a paradigm shift. Who would have believed that as advanced and as sophisticated as we were in the 70s and 80s, we could have actually made such a huge leap to the point where the way we engage, the way we communicate, the way we transact, the way we do everything changed on its head. And in fact, if we didn't embrace that change, we absolutely couldn't be around doing business, doing anything anymore. And there was collateral damage during that innovation wave, Kodak being the poster child of that collateral damage, who just never made it. Well, now we're in the sixth, and I'd like to say the biggest and most exciting innovation wave of our time, no question. It is characterized by sustainability, radical resource productivity, whole systems thinking and design, biomimicry, green buildings, smart cities. Yesterday I was speaking at the Smart Cities conference at the Arabella. Amazing, all the mayors sitting in front, lapping up this information. Also seeing the nexus and the joining of the previous innovation wave, that IT innovation wave, which thank goodness came before the sustainability one, and how these things combine to do extraordinary things. Also coming into the CTICC today to see the biggest wind energy conference happening and the Green Building Council conference happening at one sitting. Unbelievable, unbelievable. So for me, it's all very, very exciting, but what it does do for a whole lot of people who have not engaged on the subjects, it is very, very daunting and actually quite overwhelming. So what we've seen is there's been a pattern. There's been a pattern with organizations as they've evolved from not even being in the starting blocks really, not even being compliant in many respects in South Africa, saying, guys, we want to actually do something, we need to do something. We know that integrated reporting is something in the listed environment which has really advanced the cause of sustainability in a significant way. So companies, the awareness is there, they want to know what to do. So for the most part, we deal with companies, we're not too pushy. I've gave up on being pushy a long time ago, 10 years ago, where we want to be prescriptive and you've got to do things because it's the right thing to do. Altruism is not a driver in business. Money is a driver in business. And we have to get our heads around that. That is how it works. So unless we are demonstrating business value every single step on the way, we might as well leave the conversation. But for the most part, we say, and in South Africa right now, companies are avoiding risk. I would say 70 to 80% of the companies, the top end of town in the listed environment, just don't want to have any negative consequences for something going wrong. So we say that's fine. Let's engage at that level. Just make sure you understand what are the material risks, because that comes the next issue. Then a lot of companies realize, hold on, we can differentiate ourselves. We can do things differently so that we can be head and shoulders above our competitors and hopefully get more market share. And they do a little bit of PR for reputation. They go and do a tree planting and have a volunteer day. It looks fantastic in the newsletter. They cut a ribbon. They eat some finger snacks. And at the end of it, everybody goes back to their miserable lives in the community, and the company feels good for a couple of hours. Not sustainable. The PR company and the marketing division love it because they got a little bit of kudos and people reading their stuff on social media, but they don't realize it has to continue. And these are initiatives linked to the brand. It isn't the brand. Then we get to a point where companies start taking action, and this is very exciting. Okay, because companies start realizing that they actually can demonstrate business value from doing things differently and doing things in a better way. And nothing has been more of a driver in the last 5 years than energy management and renewable energy, where people are saying, wow, we can put in new lights and it's a 90% reduction from incandescent lights and we save a whole lot of money and the payback periods are within 12 months. Hallelujah. That's better than any other investment we can make in our organization, and they go ahead. And they start going out with, we're going green because we changed the light bulbs. Okay, that is not sustainable because there has to be continuous improvement after that. Then you get companies that actually now say, well, we have to set some goals and we have to have milestones on how we're going to reach those goals. And they create a sub-brand for green work. And I suppose the most famous sub-brand in South Africa is the Good Business Journey from Woolworths, which has been amazing. Very, very comprehensive, very, very holistic, and covering a whole lot of social and environmental issues in the normal way that they do business, which is fantastic. And for the most part, that sub-brand has actually translated into Woolworths being regarded as the green retailer. Yes, they put their neck out and they get a lot of flack from people because people pick holes in it, but for the most part, they're doing a fantastic job at driving leadership in the retail sector and beyond, upstream in terms of their supply chain as well. So they're playing a huge advocacy role there as well. And then it's the difficult part. And this is the part, for the most part, I think in South Africa, very few companies, and I think Woolies, and I think with all respect, everyone struggles with this because this is when it becomes part of the brand. This is when all the people, every single aspect, all the stakeholders, internal and external, speak the same language and talk from the same hymn sheet. And that is when it becomes very difficult. The whole movement from this evolution is from compliance to innovation mindset, and then from turning risks into opportunities. So what are the risks? Okay, and this is when it gets quite interesting. This is a map of risks across 5 different categories that was developed by the World Economic Forum. And you can see they're completely diverse. We've got 3 in the top 10 there, the ones on the right, that are actually environmental risks. Climate change, I think, was number 5 in 2014. Water was number 3 in 2014. And extreme weather events was number 6. And you can see that those are all connected with one another. And the way they came and arrived at which are the top 10 risks facing business by impact today is the sheer number of connections and other things that it actually impacts. Water in South Africa, it's, for me, what's happening right now, and I have to say, and I'm no prophet or visionary, trust me, but for the last 5 years, I've had this nightmare of trying to wake up CEOs and shake them that there's a fire coming and them and their families are going to be burnt. And I've arrived at the conclusion that as a species, hindsight is a lot more popular than foresight. Okay, and what really gives us a good example of this is I did a workshop, a water workshop, under the Carbon Disclosure Project with a construction and mining company recently, with all the heads of each of the different divisions, mining and construction divisions. And in the room was someone from a big accounting firm who had just done a risk materiality exercise with the board of this holding company. And I showed them this, and I said to him, so tell me, given, and this is 2015 already, water had already become the biggest risk, up from number 3 in 2015, facing business today. I said, given that water is the biggest risk facing business today, and South Africa is the 30th most water-stressed country in the world, where in this company does water sit as a material risk? He looked at me and he said, nowhere. It doesn't appear. I said, but you're a construction and mining company, or you service that industry. I said, how come it doesn't appear? I said, what are the 2 criteria, or what criteria do you use for evaluating risk? He said, business and financial. I said, okay, so from a financial perspective, why is it not a risk? Because our clients pay for the water. I said, gee whiz, okay. And I said, if we have to, it doesn't cost much. It's like a rounding error. 8 rand for 1,000 liters on a municipal bill not worth taking notice of. I said, okay, that's very interesting. I said, and as a business risk, why is it not a business risk? I said, what happens if there's no water? What happens if all of a sudden the taps turn off and there's business continuity issues and loss of productivity? Who pays for that? No, we do. I said, okay, and how much is that going to cost you for a day, a week, a month? No clue. Anyway, at that stage, the big accounting firm guy wanted to curl up in the fetal position and have the ground swallow him. But it just shows you the level of complacency and this whole issue around ROI being the driver for everything in South Africa. So how do we engage? We engage with companies, and I always felt us a company that was beyond compliance. So we were helping people, other people's job to do compliance, but I've realized that people actually don't even have a handle on compliance. They don't actually know, they aren't there yet. So what we really engage now with companies is, let's get the management system, let's give you visibility into what your risks are. And that's why we start on risk. And if we get a new client, we got one the other day in the beverage industry, private company, and they'd done nothing, and they were very embarrassed. They said, how come we don't know any of this stuff? Thanks for pointing it out to me. We're not a listed company. We don't have to do all that fancy stuff, but we also want to do the right thing, and they're a family business. So I said, let's start off on risk. Let's get your ISO 14,000 systems. You've just done an ISO 22,000 food safety system. Let's get you up to 14,000, which is the environmental management system, tells you all how you have to do stuff. And make sure that we understand all the legal compliance, and that's relevant to your company. Yeah, let's do a water risk study, which we've got a way of doing. We take all the sites of a company, put it into a couple of tools, and we come up with something that generally scares the bejesus out of people when they see it, but they don't really want to see it. And it's really about coming up with, 80% of your water is being consumed by 20% of your sites, and 80% of those are in highly water-stressed areas. And we put it in a beautiful infographic, and I shove it in front of the director's face. I said, now you've seen it. Up to you whether you feel it's your fiduciary duty to do anything about it. So water is something we always engage in. Then we do energy audits, and we show them how if they spend some money, they can achieve some savings, and payback periods anything between 0 and 3 years. And then we do a baseline carbon footprint, which shows them the baseline against which they're going to measure, hopefully, their positive environmental performance. And then we're going to show them how they can make money by actually finding new opportunities in the current markets they're engaging. And then hopefully overall, once they're doing everything, they'll become a brand that is admired and preferred against other brands in their sector. But for this, we really need to redefine the way we value things. And I spoke about ROI because ROI is very convenient, and it's the blue-eyed boy of most chartered accountants running most of the country's companies. Okay, everything needs to fit into this very simple ROI calculation. And I say that's fantastic as long as you're putting the right numbers in. Because ROI, if you go to an executive and say, I want to do rainwater harvesting, for example, and you come back and then what's the ROI payback? 20 years? Oh no, that's a career-limiting move, potentially, for some people trying to get that across the line. But if you put in the number, instead of 8 rand for 1,000 liters, you put in what I spoke about earlier, and the cost of water, should it not be around, then things start to look very differently. The other thing we need to look at is actually the intangible value that you're adding to an organization. Because right now, the S&P 500, most of the value, 80% of it, is not locked into tangible value like we used to know it in the 70s, which was built environment, financial capital, manufactured capital, all those things that we could really count and value. It's all about those things that accountants hate because it's difficult to value. It's goodwill, it's intellectual property, it's reputation, it's all that stuff that you could argue doesn't have a value. But we spoke about Volkswagen today. Okay, Volkswagen yesterday, another 800,000 cars that they've been having software that conceals the actual true fuel efficiency of these cars. Well, how does that happen? How does that actually happen? Where you have a company that's lost 50% of its market capitalization in the last 6 months due to a corporate governance issue and an environmental non-compliance issue. These are non-financial things that have derailed one of the iconic brands of our time. So the other thing is, how we do that, we have to consider things beyond that little circle. We have to consider the environmental, social, corporate governance things, all the 6 capitals, and we have to broaden our horizons to make sure we understand how to value that, and we understand how to improve our relationship with those previously ignored externalities. So for ourselves, best practice, I think strategy or management system could come at the bottom, but we need a strategy. And we need an absolutely holistic, transformative strategy. I'm not talking about the favorite one at the moment, which is 20 by 2020, because it rhymes and it's alliteration and it rolls off the tongue so nicely. I'm talking about carbon neutrality, zero waste to landfill, water neutrality, biodiversity protection. I'm talking about all the things that really get us back to a point of an ecosystem. An ecosystem in its pure form is in sacred physical balance. It is carbon neutral, it is zero waste, it doesn't have a thing called waste because everything is continuously cycling around. So for the most part, an ecosystem is what we need to get back to. Plus, we've got this other thing which is going to happen at COP21 at the end of the year, which means that there's science. We have to actually change, we actually have to listen to the science, which means in most companies to stay below 2 degrees Celsius, average temperature increase globally, we have to reduce our carbon emissions as a species by 6% per annum as a unit of our GDP and turnover. Then we need to measure it, and measurement has been my Achilles heel. It's something actually also that keeps me up at night because we've been in a situation of movement from a voluntary situation to a mandatory situation now where actually the numbers and the non-financial indicators that we are using are not reliable, and it's rubbish in, rubbish out. And it's getting to the point right now where we actually have to have enterprise systems managing the stuff and not just one poor sod, a sustainability manager and a spreadsheet managing all the non-financial data in these massive, massive companies. We assist about 15 of the top 100 companies with their carbon emissions reporting at the carbon disclosure every year, and I think 80% of them are still doing all this stuff on spreadsheets. Imagine running your financial performance on a spreadsheet. Not possible, and it wouldn't be accurate. Central strategy, implementation, making sure that we do everything absolutely right, and then the reporting and the feedback mechanisms, which I'm not going to go into too much detail. Carbon footprint is a very famous diagram. Greenhouse gas protocol, it's a protocol for accounting. We use it. It's a great tool for the environmental side of things, and in my opinion, environmental as part of the hierarchy is the most important thing to get right, because you cannot build successful societies in an environmental wasteland. Okay, so everyone who says so social, social, social in South Africa, I agree with it. The only reason they push it is because people have votes and the environment doesn't. So carbon footprint is what we measure, and we get the intensities, and in terms of the green building is how much is right for a corporate or a corporate office to be consuming in terms of energy per square meter, what are the drivers for that, and we have analysts continuously crunching numbers to work out how to performance manage these companies. Then we extend it, and you can refer to Puma and looking at the entire value chain. That's what we do for Fair Cape Milk. And Fair Cape Milk is now the entire value chain from absolutely everything, growing the food that feed the animals with the enteric fermentation, or the gas that they let out, the entire value chain, and we use this as an optimization mechanism. And then we use something called the MAC curve, which is really how do we get a 200,000 ton carbon footprint to zero? We have one dashboard that can take every single opportunity, and you can see on the far left, it's all the low-hanging fruit, which I spoke about, the lighting and the efficient lighting, but absolutely everything to renewable energy, and we can see how we can reduce an entire carbon footprint. And how much it's going to cost the company and over what period. So we have these tools right now that we use, and it's giving, at a group level, a lot of visibility for companies. And I think this is really where it comes down to. And I think something probably that Jochen would probably have found very, very challenging as well is you're running a massive organization. You're at a group level. You have traditionally been beholden to your stakeholders or your shareholders as the main stakeholder grouping, and you want to put out beautiful reports that says beautiful things to those people so that they keep on investing in your company. The problem is you've got a massive company with offices in 180 countries, and you've got people at each of those offices, and we're not able to embed. So we developed something called middleware. It's a throwback from our IT days, which is really just linking an organization, its divisions, its people, and those are the things that have to be done to embed sustainability in the organization, and that we use enterprise software for. We're currently working with Oracle globally on that. Sorry. So, in conclusion, my top 10 critical success factors for any company, and I'm quite, when a company says, no, but we decentralize, I'm saying, no, it doesn't work from a sustainability or any change management perspective. But really, number one, buy-in from the executive management. Without that, you're going to be wheel spinning forever, and you will not get any traction. 2, embrace a new vision. Do things differently. 3, fight short-termism. And we can see Paul Polman has been really instrumental in getting this whole attitude of quarterly reporting as being a benchmark for financial performance. Centralized strategy, action, centralized everything. We have to make sure that we've got the communication systems, the education systems, the strategy, everything centralized so that everybody in the organization knows exactly how to change their behavior to meet the objectives from a sustainability perspective at a group level. Alignment with business strategy. Redefine valuation methods, which I spoke about, engage in new forms of collaboration so we can absolutely authentically share value across all stakeholder groups, base your goals on science so we don't burn ourselves up as a species, and pursue and drive innovation. Thank you very much, everybody.